All right, in this video, we're going to look at what happens to y equals 8 over x when x approaches 0 from the right and also the left. So let's graph it. So we're going to graph y equals 8 to the x, 8 over x, all right? And we see it's a weird type of graph, right? It's not a line, it's not a parabola. This is called a rational function, all right? So it has this, if I draw it on here, x equals 0, right? That vertical blue line, that's called a vertical asymptote. All right, that's a line that the graph is going to get infinitely closer to, but never touch. All right, and if I kept going up and I traced points, you would see that that's the wrong graph. I got to get the red one. Oops. So like if I get this red one here, you see that as x gets really small, y is getting closer to infinity. All right. So if you think about what's happening here, if you made like a little table, if we plugged 1 in for x, all right, y would be 8. So, right, 8 divided by 1, 8 divided by 1 is 8. All right, but if we plug in like 1/2, all right, 8 divided by 1/2 is going to be 16 because dividing by 1/2 is the same thing as multiplying by 2. So as that number that you're dividing 8 by gets closer to 0, right, like 8 divided by 1/100th is going to be 800 because it's the same thing as 8 times 100. So as you get infinitely closer to 0, y is going to get closer and closer to infinity. It's going to get larger and larger. All right, and if you kept zooming out, you would see that. It would just keeps going up. All right, now that's the blue graph. I have to delete this to see it. There we go. Okay, that's because we're dividing by smaller and smaller numbers. Now the same thing happens if we hit it from the left side, as x approaches 0 from the left. Now if you take a number that's really close to 0 on the left, like negative 0.1, 8 divided by negative 0.1 or negative 1/10 is the same thing as 8 times 10, it's 80. So as you approach this from the left, since it's now dividing by a negative, now y is going to approach negative infinity. All right, so in conclusion, when you divide by a variable, you get crazy stuff happening to your graph. And as that number gets closer to 0 in your denominator, this graph is going to approach infinity. But as you equal 0, the graph is going to be undefined. There is no value on this graph when x is 0. It jumps right from to the left of 0 to the right of 0. All right.